The rain came down like judgment. Allie Fisher knelt on the wet pavement outside the house she'd called home for 3 years, her swollen belly pressed against her thighs, her hands clutching the cold concrete. Water soaked through her thin cotton dress, the fabric clinging to her skin, to the curve of her 8-month pregnancy, to every shiver that racked her exhausted body. Above her, silhouetted in the golden light of the doorway, stood her husband. Lon Cobb held a suitcase in one hand. Her suitcase, the one he'd packed himself, throwing in whatever he could grab fastest. His face was twisted in disgust, lips curled back like she was something rotting on his doorstep. "Please," Allie whispered, her voice breaking. "Lon, please. Just wait until morning. The baby." This is a story about a woman who was discarded like trash when she needed love most. About a man who had everything except a reason to live. And about the night their broken pieces found each other in the dark. It's about betrayal so cruel it happens in the rain. About survival when you're 8 months pregnant and have nowhere to go. About a stranger who gave away his fortune because he thought he was dying. And about the woman whose love proved he deserved to live. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. Or if you're new here, welcome to a story that will break your heart before it puts it back together. I'm so glad you're here. Drop a comment below and tell me where in the world you're watching from. Are you listening from your bed? Your car? Late at night when everyone else is asleep? And hey, have you subscribed yet? Because if this story hits you the way I think it will, you're going to want more like it. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now. It takes 1 second, and it helps us keep bringing you these powerful, emotional stories. All right, let's dive in. The baby, he spat, and the venom in his voice made her flinch. You mean the trap you tried to spring on me? Behind him, his mother appeared. Catherine Cobb, immaculate even at midnight, her silk robe perfectly tied, her hair in curlers, her eyes cold as winter stone. She's pathetic, Catherine said, not even looking at Allie. Ain't nobody. I told you she was beneath you from the start. Lon stepped forward, and for a moment, one desperate, foolish moment, Allie thought he might help her up. Instead, he threw a manila folder at her feet. Hospital files scattered across the wet ground. Ultrasound images. Prescription notes. The private, precious documentation of the life growing inside her. You thought you could trap me with this. Lon's voice rose, sharp enough to cut through the storm. You think I don't know what you are? A burden. A leech. You haven't been attractive in months. Allie. You're nothing but stretch marks and complaints. Tears mixed with rain on her face. Her hands moved instinctively to her belly, protecting, always protecting. I gave you everything, she choked out. I loved you. You loved my money. He laughed, harsh and ugly. Well, you're not getting a dime. No lawyers, no alimony, no child support. You want to keep that baby? You figure it out. Lon. We are done. The door slammed. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the empty street. Then came the lock. The deadbolt. The chain. Final. Irreversible. Allie stayed on her knees, staring at the closed door, her breath coming in short, painful gasps. The baby kicked hard, too hard, a sharp jab beneath her ribs that made her cry out. I'm sorry, she whispered to her unborn daughter, her voice barely audible over the rain. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm trying. She tried to stand. Her legs shook. Her vision blurred. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the empty street, the houses with their curtains drawn, the world that had turned its back on her. And she realized, with a terror that sank into her bones, she had nowhere to go. 3 hours earlier, the house had been quiet. Allie had been in the kitchen, moving slowly, one hand braced against the counter for balance. Her ankles were swollen. Her back ached. She hadn't slept properly in weeks because every position hurt, because the baby pressed on her lungs, because Lon hadn't come home again. She'd made dinner anyway. Chicken, roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes, his favorites. She'd set the table with candles, even though she knew he probably wouldn't show. Even though she'd found the receipts in his jacket pocket. Expensive restaurants. Hotels. Charges at 2 in the morning. Even though she'd seen the scratches on his back when he'd changed shirts last week. Even though he'd stopped touching her months ago, stopped looking at her, stopped pretending she existed except when he needed to criticize. You're getting huge, he'd said last time he noticed her at all. It's disgusting. But she'd made dinner anyway. Because she still loved him. Because she still believed that when the baby came, everything would be different. That he'd hold their daughter and remember why he married her. That love could survive this. The door had opened at 10 o'clock. Lon walked in, phone pressed to his ear, laughing at something someone else said. Someone who made him smile in a way Ali hadn't seen in months. He glanced at the table. At the cold food. At her standing there in her maternity dress, hopeful and stupid. He hung up. What's this? I made dinner. Her voice was small. I thought we could talk. Talk about what? About us. About the baby. Lon, she's coming in a few weeks, and we haven't even set up the nursery. We haven't picked a name. We haven't. I've been busy. Busy with what? The question came out sharper than she intended. Months of swallowing her pain, and suddenly it clawed its way out. You're never here. You don't answer my calls. You smell like perfume that isn't mine. Where have you been, Lon? His face darkened. Don't start this. Start what? Asking my husband why he doesn't come home anymore. Because I don't want to. The words exploded out of him. Because coming home to this, to you waddling around, complaining, crying, demanding attention, it's suffocating, Ali. She stepped back like he'd struck her. I'm pregnant with your child. Are you? He laughed, cruel and cold. Or is that just what you told me to lock me down? The room spun. How can you even say that? Because I know women like you. He moved closer, and she could smell whiskey on his breath, could see the rage in his eyes that had been building for months. You were nothing when I met you. A waitress. No family, no money, no prospects. Then suddenly you're pregnant, and suddenly I'm supposed to play house. You said you loved me. I was bored. He shrugged, like her breaking heart was nothing. You were pretty enough. But now, look at you. She looked down at herself, at the body that was creating life, at the swollen belly where their daughter grew stronger every day, at the physical evidence of the miracle they'd made together. And he saw only disgust. I want you gone, Lon said quietly. What? Pack a bag. Tonight. I'm done. You can't, Lon. I'm 8 months pregnant. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem. That's when Catherine appeared. She must have been listening the whole time, waiting for her moment. Finally, she said, gliding into the room like a viper. I told you to do this months ago. Mom's right, Lon said, and his voice took on a finality that made Ali's blood run cold. This was a mistake. You were a mistake. Ali felt her knees weakening. The baby kicked again, hard, like she could sense her mother's distress. Please, Ali whispered. Just let me stay until the baby comes. Then I'll go. I won't ask for anything. Just. Now. Lon grabbed her arm, not gently, tight enough to bruise, and dragged her toward the stairs. Get your things. You have 10 minutes. But he didn't even give her that. He packed the suitcase himself, throwing in random clothes, none of them weather appropriate, none of them enough. He didn't pack her medications. He didn't pack the baby clothes she'd been washing and folding with such care. He packed her out of his life in 7 minutes. And then he threw her out into the rain. Ali walked. She didn't know where she was going. Her phone was dead. Lon had cancelled their family plan, apparently, because when she tried to call her one friend from work, there was no service. Every step was agony. Her feet were swollen, and the cheap flats she wore were soaked through. Her suitcase had a broken wheel, so she had to carry it, and the weight made her shoulder scream. The rain didn't stop. Cars passed, their headlights blinding, their drivers looking away when they saw her. A pregnant woman alone on the street at midnight was someone else's problem. She made it 4 blocks before the first contraction hit. It wasn't labor, not yet. The doctor had told her what to expect, but it was pain, sharp and breathtaking, radiating from her belly through her entire body. She stopped beneath a street lamp, gasping, one hand pressed to her stomach. Not yet, she whispered to her baby. Please, sweetheart. Not yet. Just hold on for me. Please. The contraction passed. She kept walking. A taxi drove by, its light on. She tried to flag it down, waving desperately, but the driver saw her pregnant belly, her wet clothes, her obvious desperation, and accelerated away. Another taxi. Same result. She walked. The neighborhoods grew less familiar. The streetlights more sparse. Her vision started to blur at the edges, darkness creeping in. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten a full meal. Lon had controlled the money, and she'd been rationing what little she could hide away. The baby kicked weakly. "I'm sorry," Allie sobbed, still walking, going nowhere. "I'm so sorry I don't have anything to give you. I'm trying so hard." She didn't see the gas station until she was almost past it. Fluorescent lights. A bored clerk inside. A few cars at the pumps. Civilization. Allie stumbled toward it, and her legs finally gave out. She collapsed against the wall near the entrance, sliding down, her suitcase falling beside her. The concrete was cold and wet and filthy, and she didn't care. She couldn't walk anymore. She couldn't do anything but sit there, shivering, crying, one hand on her belly. People walked past her. A man getting coffee stepped over her legs without a glance. A woman with a child saw her and quickly ushered her daughter away, like poverty might be contagious. The clerk inside watched through the window and did nothing. Allie closed her eyes. Maybe this was it. Maybe she'd just stay here. Maybe someone would call an ambulance eventually. Maybe. The sound of a car engine, smooth and expensive, purred to a stop nearby. A door opened. Footsteps approached, not hurried, but not hesitant either. Steady. Purposeful. Allie opened her eyes. Through the rain and her tears, she saw polished shoes. Expensive slacks. A hand extending toward her, palm up. She looked up. The man standing over her was in his mid-30s, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. Dark hair, sharp features, eyes that held a strange mixture of exhaustion and something else. Something like recognition. Not of her, but of pain. "Can you stand?" he asked. His voice was soft, careful, like someone who understood exactly how fragile she was in this moment. Allie stared at his hand, and heard herself whisper, "Why do you care?" The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Because I'm dying," he said simply, "and my money means nothing now." Want to see what happens next? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. This story is just getting started. And drop a comment below. Have you ever felt completely alone? Let me know. His name was Noah Miles. He told her this in the car, a sleek black sedan that smelled like leather and expensive cologne, as he drove her away from that gas station, away from the worst night of her life. Allie sat in the passenger seat, wrapped in his suit jacket, still shivering despite the heat blasting from the vents. Her suitcase was in the trunk. Her wet clothes soaked into the expensive upholstery, but he hadn't said a word about it. "Where are we going?" she asked. Her voice sounded hollow. "Hospital first," Noah said, his eyes on the road. "You need to be checked. Then, we'll figure it out." "I don't have insurance anymore." The admission burned. "My husband, ex-husband, he." "I'm paying." "You don't even know me." "I know enough." Allie turned to look at him properly for the first time. In the dim light from the dashboard, she could see the shadows under his eyes, the tightness around his mouth, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel like he needed something solid to hold onto. He looked like a man at the end of something. "What did you mean," she asked quietly, "when you said you're dying?" Noah was silent for a long moment. Then, "I was diagnosed 6 months ago. Rare. Incurable. The doctors gave me a year, maybe less." His voice was factual, detached, like he was discussing someone else's death. "I've spent the last few months trying to, I don't know, find meaning in it. Give away enough money that someone benefits from my existence. That's why you stopped for me. That's why I stopped for you." Allie absorbed this. A stranger, dying, who decided her life was worth saving. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Noah glanced at her, surprised. "For what?" "That you're sick. That you're alone. That. Don't." His voice was sharp, then softened. "Don't apologize for things that aren't your fault. You have enough to carry." The hospital was bright and sterile and safe. Noah paid for everything in cash, a thick stack of bills that made the intake nurse's eyes widen. He stayed while they checked Ali's vitals, while they monitored the baby's heartbeat, while a doctor told her she was severely dehydrated, malnourished, and lucky she hadn't gone into premature labor. You need bed rest, the doctor said firmly.
Prope nutrition.
No stress. Do you have somewhere safe to stay? Ali looked at her hands. Noah spoke before she could answer. She does now. Noah's house was not a house. It was an estate. Set back from the road, surrounded by gardens even the rain couldn't diminish, all glass and modern architecture and the kind of wealth Ali had only seen in magazines. She stood in the marble foyer, dripping, exhausted, overwhelmed. I can't, she started. Guest room is upstairs, Noah said, already heading toward a sweeping staircase. First door on the left. There's a bathroom attached. Tomorrow I'll have someone bring clothes that actually fit you. Noah. He stopped, turned. What? Why are you doing this? He studied her for a moment, this broken, pregnant stranger he'd pulled from the gutter. Because for the first time in 6 months, he said quietly, I feel like I'm doing something that matters. He showed her to the guest room, which was larger than the entire apartment she'd lived in before she married Lon. There was a 4-poster bed with soft white linens, a window overlooking the gardens, a bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. Rest, Noah said. We'll talk in the morning. But Ali couldn't rest. She stood in that beautiful room, in her wet clothes, one hand on her belly, and finally let herself break. She sobbed. Deep, wrenching cries that came from somewhere primal, somewhere that had been holding terror at bay through sheer will. She cried for her marriage. For her baby who would grow up without a father. For herself, alone and discarded. She cried until she had nothing left. Then she showered. The hot water was heaven on her aching muscles. She washed away the rain, the filth, the feel of the pavement under her knees. When she emerged, there were clothes on the bed, soft cotton pajamas, clearly Noah's, far too big but clean and warm. She put them on. She climbed into bed. And for the first time in months, she felt safe. Ali woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it crashed back, the rain, the door slamming, Noah's hand reaching for her. She sat up slowly, her body aching in new ways. The baby kicked, stronger now, like she'd felt her mother's relief. Good morning, little one, Ali whispered, hand on her belly. We are okay. I think we are going to be okay. There was a knock at the door. Come in, she called. Noah entered, carrying a tray. Coffee, tea, toast, fruit, yogurt, more food than she could eat. I didn't know what you'd want, he said, setting it on the nightstand. Or what you should have. I called the doctor from last night. She said protein and hydration. Ali stared at the food, at this man who'd known her for less than 12 hours and was treating her with more care than her husband had in months. Thank you, she said, and her voice cracked. Noah sat in the chair by the window, maintaining a respectful distance. In the daylight, she could see him more clearly. He was handsome, in a tired, worn-down way. His clothes were expensive but hung on him like he'd lost weight recently. His eyes held the hollow look of someone who'd stared at death too long. Eat, he said gently. She did. The food was perfect. She hadn't realized how hungry she was until she started, and then she couldn't stop. She ate everything, her body desperate for nourishment, the baby seeming to settle as she finally fed them both properly. Noah watched without comment. When she finished, he said, I want to give you something. You've already. Please. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. Just listen. He handed it to her. Ali opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a check. $500,000. She stopped breathing. This is, Noah, I can't, this is insane. It's nothing. His voice was flat. I have more than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and I don't have 10 lifetimes. I have months, maybe weeks. This money, it's just numbers. But for you, it could mean a life. For your baby. No one just gives someone $500,000. Ali's mind was reeling. What's wrong with you? And I don't mean the illness, I mean, why would you do this? Noah leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and for the first time she saw real emotion crack through his careful control. Because I'm alone, he said. No family. No wife. No children. I built an empire, and there's no one to leave it to. I've spent 6 months watching my life count down, and you know what I realized. What? That I didn't matter. That when I die, I'll disappear like I never existed. And then last night, I saw you. His eyes met hers. And you were fighting so hard to survive. For your baby. And I thought, maybe I could do one thing. One real thing before the end. Allie's throat tightened. You matter, she whispered. Not to anyone. To me. Right now. You saved my life. Noah looked away, jaw tight. Keep the money. Please. Let me know that something I did will outlast me. Allie looked at the check. At the number that could change everything. That could mean an apartment, medical care, a future for her daughter. But she looked at Noah too. At his loneliness. At his resignation. At the way he'd said months, maybe weeks, like it was inevitable. Okay, she said softly. I'll take it. On one condition. What? Let me stay. He blinked. What? Here. With you. Allie's words came faster now, the idea forming as she spoke. You said you're alone. That you have no one to spend your last days with. So let me stay. Let me. I don't know. Keep you company. Cook for you. Be here. You don't owe me anything. I know. She held his gaze. But you're dying alone, and I'm surviving alone, and maybe we could be less alone together. Noah stared at her. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. Okay. The days became a rhythm. Allie woke in her beautiful room. She'd come downstairs to find Noah already awake. He didn't sleep well, she learned, the illness-causing pain that woke him in the night. She'd make breakfast. Simple things at first, until he hired someone to deliver groceries, and then she could make real meals. Pancakes. Omelets. The kind of food that felt like care in edible form. They'd eat together in the sunroom, watching the gardens. At first, they didn't talk much. Just coexisted. Two broken people learning to be around someone else again. But slowly, gradually, they began to share. Noah told her about his business, tech investments that had made him wealthy beyond reason. About his parents, who died when he was young. About building his empire alone, trusting no one, needing no one. And now? Allie asked one morning. Now I realize that was the loneliest way to live. Allie told him about Lon. About the whirlwind romance that had felt like fate. About how he'd changed after they married, became cold, distant. How the pregnancy had been her last hope, and how he'd crushed it. He called me a nobody, she said, staring at her tea. Noah's voice was hard. He's an idiot. I'm just a waitress. You're a woman who walked 4 miles in the rain while 8 months pregnant because you refused to give up. Noah leaned forward. You're someone who fights. Who survives. Who still thinks about other people even when you're falling apart. That's not nothing, Allie. That's everything. She cried. He let her. The weeks passed. Allie's belly grew larger. The baby kicked constantly now, strong and healthy. Noah would sometimes look at her stomach with something like wonder. Can I? He asked one day, hand hovering near her belly. Yes. He placed his palm against her, gentle, reverent. The baby kicked right into his hand. Noah's eyes widened. Does that hurt? Sometimes. Allie laughed softly. But it also means she's okay. That she's growing. She. I think so. I don't know for sure. Lon didn't want to find out, and then. She shrugged. What would you name her? If it's a girl. Allie hadn't let herself think about it. Names felt too real, too hopeful. But sitting there, in the safety Noah had given her, she let herself dream. Maybe. Hope, she said. Because she's the reason I kept going. Noah smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him. Hope Miles, he said. Hope Fisher. Right. Sorry. But something in Allie's chest warmed at the sound of her daughter's name in his voice. It happened on a Tuesday. Allie woke at 2 a.m. to the sound of someone moving downstairs. She got up slowly, her body awkward and heavy now at 9 months, and made her way down. She found Noah in his study, sitting on the floor with his back against the desk, knees pulled up, head in his hands. "Noah." He looked up, and his face was wet with tears. "I'm sorry," he said roughly. "Did I wake you?" "What's wrong?" She lowered herself to the floor beside him. Not easy, but necessary. "Pain."
No.
"Yes. I don't know." He wiped at his face angrily. I can't stop thinking about it. About dying. About ceasing to exist. And I'm so tired of being afraid." Allie's heart broke. "Come here," she said softly. Noah let her pull him closer, let her wrap her arms around him as much as her pregnant belly allowed. He shook against her, this strong, wealthy man reduced to terror in the middle of the night. "I don't want to die alone," he whispered. "You won't," Allie promised. "I'm here. For as long as you need me, I'm here." They sat on that floor for an hour. Eventually, Noah's breathing calmed. The panic subsided. "Can I tell you something?" Allie asked. "Anything." "Put your hand here." She guided his palm to her belly, to where the baby was moving. "She's awake," Noah said, awed. "She knows you're upset. Babies can sense these things." Allie kept her hand over his. "She's reminding you that there's still life. Still reasons to fight." Noah's eyes filled again, but this time with something other than fear. "You saved my life, you know," he said. "That night at the gas station. You gave me a reason to keep going. You saved mine first."
No.
"You don't understand." Noah turned to face her fully. "I was on my way to the bridge. I was going to jump. End it on my terms before the illness did. And then I saw you, and I couldn't leave you there." Allie's breath caught. "Noah, you gave me a purpose. These last weeks, taking care of you, being here. It's the first time I've felt alive since the diagnosis." She pulled him back into her arms, holding him as tight as she could. "Then we saved each other," she whispered. "If you're feeling this story, do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button. My mom said I'd never hit 1,000 subscribers. Help me prove her wrong. Drop a comment with a heart if you're still with me." It was a Wednesday when Noah's phone rang. They were in the living room, Allie reading aloud from a novel while Noah listened, his eyes closed, finally at peace, when his cell buzzed. He looked at the screen and went pale. "It's the hospital," he said. Allie's stomach dropped. "What do they want?" "I don't know." He answered. "Hello." She watched his face as he listened. Watched the color drain. Watched his hand start to shake. "I see," he said. "When?" "Yes. I'll be there in an hour." He hung up. "Noah. They need me to come in." His voice was hollow. "They said it's urgent. About my condition." The words they both didn't say hung in the air. "It's gotten worse." Allie struggled to her feet. "I'm coming with you." "You don't have to." "I'm coming." The drive to the hospital was silent. Noah's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Allie reached over and placed her hand on his arm, a small comfort, the only thing she could offer. At the hospital, they were ushered immediately into a private room. Dr. Chen, Noah's oncologist, was waiting. She was a small woman with kind eyes and the bearing of someone who delivered death sentences with compassion. "Mr. Miles," she said, "please, sit." "Just tell me," Noah said, still standing. "How long do I have?" Dr. Chen looked at Allie, then back at Noah. "Mr. Miles, we ran new tests. Comprehensive scans, blood work, genetic markers. And I need to tell you something. I know it's bad. You were misdiagnosed." The room went silent. "What?" Noah's voice was barely a whisper. "The initial pathology was wrong. We don't know how it happened. There will be an investigation, but you don't have the condition we diagnosed you with. In fact," Dr. Chen smiled, and it was like sun breaking through clouds, "you're perfectly healthy." Allie's knees gave out. She sat down hard, hand on her belly. Noah just stood there. That's not possible." "I have the results here. Multiple confirmations. Mr. Miles, you're not dying. You never were." "But the scans." were someone else's. Mixed up in the lab. It's inexcusable, and the hospital will be addressing it, but right now, the important thing is, you're fine. Noah stared at her. Then he turned and walked out of the room. Allie found him in the parking lot, sitting on a curb, head in his hands. She lowered herself beside him carefully. Noah. I'm not dying. His voice cracked. 6 months. 6 months of thinking I had weeks left, of giving everything away, of planning my funeral, and I'm not dying. That's good news. Is it? He looked at her, and his face was devastated. I burned my whole life down, Allie. I quit my company. I gave away millions. I cut ties with everyone because I thought there was no point. And now I have to, what? Go back. Pretend the last 6 months didn't happen. You saved me, Allie said quietly. In those 6 months, you saved my life. You gave me hope, she touched her belly, a future, a reason to believe in kindness again. I would have died alone, Noah whispered. If you hadn't found me, or if I hadn't found you, I would have jumped off that bridge thinking no one cared if I lived or died. But you didn't. Because of you. He grabbed her hand, held it tight. You were thrown away like trash, and you still had the capacity to care about me, to sit with me in the dark, to make me want to see another sunrise. Allie's eyes filled. So what now? Noah looked at their joined hands, at her swollen belly, at the future that had just opened up in front of him. Now, he said slowly, I figure out how to live. Really live. And if you'll let me, I'd like to do that with you. They drove back to the estate in a daze. Noah kept laughing, sharp, disbelieving bursts of sound. Allie kept crying. The relief, the shock, the sheer impossibility of it all. He was going to live. They made it through the front door before Noah pulled Allie into his arms, carefully, mindful of her belly. Thank you, he said into her hair. Thank you for giving me a reason to fight. Thank you for giving me a place to land. They stood there, two people who'd saved each other without meaning to, holding on to the miracle of second chances. Then Allie gasped. What? What's wrong? Noah pulled back, alarmed. Nothing wrong. She kicked. Hard. Allie laughed. I think she's celebrating too. Noah dropped to his knees and pressed his forehead gently against Allie's belly. Hello, Hope, he whispered. I get to meet you after all. But their peace was short-lived. 2 days later, there was a knock at the door. Allie was in the kitchen, baking. She'd taken up stress baking, and the house constantly smelled of cookies now. Noah was in his office, on the phone with his lawyers, trying to sort out the mess of his business. She answered the door, and froze. Lon stood on the doorstep. He looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled, his face unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. He looked like a man who'd been falling for a long time and had just hit bottom. Allie. Her name came out like a prayer. Thank God. I've been looking everywhere for you. She couldn't speak, couldn't move, just stared at the man who'd thrown her out in the rain. Baby, please. He stepped forward. Let me explain. Let me. Don't call me that. Her voice was ice. Lon blinked. What? Don't call me baby. Don't call me anything. What are you doing here? I made a mistake. He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture familiar and nauseating. A huge mistake. Ali, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was confused and scared, and my mother, she kept pushing me, and... How did you find me? I hired an investigator. I had to see you. Had to make this right. He reached for her hand. Come home. Please. I'll do better. I'll be better. The baby deserves a father, and we...
No.
What?
No.
Allie stepped back, out of his reach. You threw me out when I was 8 months pregnant. You called me pathetic. You threw my hospital files in the gutter. You told me I was nothing. I was wrong. You were cruel. There's a difference. Allie, please. What happened, Lon? She crossed her arms, studying him. Why now? Why do you suddenly want me back? He hesitated, and in that hesitation, she saw the truth. Oh my God. She laughed, bitter. Something happened to you. What was it? Did your mistress leave? His face confirmed it. Did your business fall apart? Did your mother turn on you? Did you realize that burning your life down had consequences? All of it, he admitted. Everything fell apart. And I realized. I need you. We are still married, Ali. You're still my wife. Not for long. A new voice spoke from behind her. Noah stood in the hallway, and his presence was calm but commanding. He moved to stand beside Ali, not in front of her, not protecting her like she was helpless, but beside her, a united front. Who the hell are you? Lon demanded. The man who picked up the pieces you broke. Noah's voice was quiet and deadly. The man who found her collapsed outside a gas station because you threw her out in a storm. Lon's eyes narrowed. You've been living with another man. I've been surviving, Ali said, which you made very clear wasn't your problem. We are married. On paper. But you stopped being my husband the moment you chose cruelty over compassion. Lon looked between them, and something ugly crossed his face. I see. You found yourself a rich replacement. How much is he paying you to play house? Noah moved forward, and there was real menace in it. Watch yourself. It's okay. Ali put a hand on Noah's arm. She turned back to Lon, and when she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. You want to know what happened after you threw me away? I'll tell you. I walked for miles. I couldn't get a taxi. Couldn't call anyone because you'd cut off my phone. I collapsed, alone and pregnant and terrified. And this man, she gestured to Noah, he saved me. Not because he wanted something from me. Not because I was convenient or pretty or useful. But because he saw a human being in pain and decided to care. How touching, Lon sneered. He gave me money. He gave me shelter. He sat with me when I cried and held my hand when the baby kicked and made me believe I deserved kindness. Ali's voice grew stronger with every word. And you know what? In the process of saving me, I saved him too. Because he needed someone to remind him that life was worth living. That he mattered. This is pathetic. You threw away a queen, Ali said, and her words rang with finality, and another man picked up the crown. Lon's face went purple. You can't do this. I already did. My lawyer will send you the divorce papers. Don't contact me again. That baby is mine. That baby, Noah said, voice like steel, is Ali's. And if you try to claim otherwise after you threw her out and denied paternity, we have witnesses. We have hospital records showing her condition when she arrived. We have evidence of your abandonment. So if I were you, I'd take the out you're being given and walk away. Lon stared at them. At Ali, glowing and strong in Noah's doorway. At Noah, steady and protective beside her. At the life he destroyed and couldn't have back. You'll regret this, he spat. No, Ali said softly. I really won't. She closed the door in his face. And then she started to cry. Not sad tears. Release. Relief. The final severing of a tie that had been strangling her. Noah pulled her close, and she buried her face in his chest. You did so well, he murmured. You were amazing. I threw him away. He threw himself away. You just stopped trying to save him. Ali pulled back to look at him. At this man who'd become her safe harbor. Her friend. Her. Noah, she said. I need to tell you something. What? I think I'm falling in love with you. His eyes widened. You don't have to say anything, she continued quickly. I know this is complicated. I'm still legally married, and I'm about to have a baby, and this is probably terrible timing. Noah kissed her. Soft. Careful. Reverent. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. I fell in love with you the night you sat on the floor with me and let me put my hand on your belly, he said. When you told me I mattered. When you promised not to let me die alone. I meant it. I know. That's why I love you. Ali kissed him again, deeper this time, pouring everything into it. Gratitude, hope, the beginning of something new. When they finally broke apart, Noah dropped to one knee. This is insane, he said, and terrible timing, and you're still married to an idiot. But when your divorce comes through, "Ali Fisher, will you marry me?" She laughed through her tears. "Yes. Yes, absolutely yes." He stood and kissed her again, and she felt hope kick between them, like she approved. Still watching? You're amazing. Show some love. Drop a comment telling me what you'd have said to Lon at that door. And please subscribe if you haven't yet. Let's get to 10K together. It was 3 weeks later when Ali's water broke. She was in the garden, reading on a bench beneath the willow tree, when she felt the rush of fluid and the immediate, unmistakable clench of her first real contraction. "Noah," she called. He was beside her in seconds, having been hovering anxiously for days. "Is it? It's time." His face went pale. Okay. Hospital. Where's the bag? Did we pack a bag?" "Weeks ago. It's by the door." Noah. Another contraction hit, and she gripped his hand hard. "I've got you," he said, and his voice steadied. "I've got you. Let's meet your daughter." Labor was 14 hours of pain and exhaustion, and Noah never leaving her side. He held her hand, brought her ice chips, wiped the sweat from her forehead, breathed with her through contractions. When the pain got so bad she sobbed that she couldn't do it, he looked her in the eyes and said, "You walked 4 miles in the rain while pregnant. You survived being thrown away by someone who should have cherished you. You rebuilt yourself from nothing. You can do anything, Ali. Anything." She pushed, and finally, at 3:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning, Hope Elise Fisher came into the world. Tiny, perfect, screaming with the outrage of the living. The nurse placed her on Ali's chest, and the world stopped. "Oh," Ali sobbed, looking down at her daughter. "Oh, you're here. You're really here. Hello, sweetheart. Hello, Hope." The baby settled at her mother's voice, eyes blinking open, unfocused but aware. Noah stood beside the bed, tears streaming down his face. "She's perfect," he whispered. "Do you want to hold her?" Ali asked. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Carefully, so carefully, the nurse helped transfer Hope to Noah's arms. He stared down at her in wonder. "Hello, Hope," he said softly. "I'm Noah. I'm going to take care of you. Both of you. For the rest of my life. I promise." Hope yawned. Noah laughed, a sound of pure joy. And Ali, watching the man she loved hold the daughter she'd fought so hard to protect, felt something settle in her chest. Peace. The divorce from Lon was finalized on a Tuesday. He didn't fight it. Didn't show up to court. Signed away his parental rights in exchange for no child support obligations. Exactly what Ali wanted. She didn't need his money. She had her own now, wisely invested. And she had Noah. 3 months after the divorce, on a perfect summer evening in the garden where she'd first felt hope kick while reading beneath the willow, Noah asked her again. Properly this time. He got down on one knee, pulled out a ring that caught the sunset like captured fire, and said, "Ali Fisher, you saved my life. You gave me a reason to live when I'd given up. You showed me what love really means. Not possession, not control, but partnership. Choice. Showing up every day and choosing each other. Will you marry me?" "Yes," she said, laughing and crying. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They were married a month later. Small ceremony. Just friends, the people who mattered. Hope was there, 6 months old and babbling, wearing a tiny white dress. When the officiant said, "You may kiss your bride," Noah cupped Ali's face in his hands and kissed her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. And in that moment, Ali thought about the woman she'd been, kneeling in the rain, thrown away, alone. She thought about how far she'd come, how she'd survived, how she'd saved a dying man and been saved in return. "I love you," she whispered against Noah's lips. "I love you," he whispered back. "Both of you. Always." It was almost perfect. But life had one more gift to give. 18 months after Ali married Noah, they were at a charity gala, one of the few public events they attended. Noah had started a foundation in Hope's name, helping pregnant women in crisis. It had become Ali's passion, her purpose. They were talking to donors when Ali saw him across the room. Lon. He looked even worse than before. Thinner. Older. Defeat written in every line of his body. He saw her too. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the crowd. Then Lon walked over. Noah tensed beside her, but Ali placed a hand on his arm. "It's okay." Lon stopped a few feet away. "Ali." "Lon." "You look." He swallowed hard. "You look happy." "I am. I heard about your foundation. What you're doing. It's good." "Thank you." Awkward silence. Then Lon said, quietly, "I'm sorry. For what I did to you. For all of it. You deserved better." Ali stuttered him. She could see that he meant it. Could see the regret, the understanding of what he'd lost. And she felt nothing.
No anger.
No pain. Just the distant recognition of someone who used to matter and didn't anymore. "Yes," she said simply. "I did deserve better. And I found it." She took Noah's hand. Lon saw the gesture. Saw the ring on her finger. Saw the way Noah looked at her, like she was everything. "I hope you find what you're looking for," Ali said. And she meant it. Not for his sake, but for her own, because holding on to hate would only poison her happiness. "I already lost it," Lon said quietly. He walked away. Noah pulled Ali close. "You okay?" "More than okay." She smiled up at him. "I just realized, I forgive him. Not because he deserves it, but because I deserve to be free of him." "You're incredible." "I'm loved. There's a difference." They danced that night. Slow circles under the chandeliers, Noah holding her like she was precious, Ali feeling like the queen he'd always said she was. And when they got home, Hope was asleep in her crib, peaceful and safe, completely unaware of the drama of her creation. Ali stood over her daughter, watching her breathe. Noah came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" he murmured. "That she'll never know what it's like to not be wanted," Ali said. "That she'll grow up seeing love that's real and kind. That she'll never settle for less than she deserves. Because of you. Because of us." They stood there in the nursery, watching their daughter sleep, and Ali thought. She'd been thrown away as a nobody, discarded in the rain by a man too small to see her value. But in the eyes of the man who'd saved her, who she'd saved in return, she'd become everything. A wife. A mother. A partner. A queen. Not because of what she had, but because of who she was. And who she'd chosen to become. 5 years later. Hope was 5 years old when Ali told her the story. They were sitting in the garden, the same garden where Ali had spent her pregnancy, where she'd felt the first real kicks, when Noah had proposed. Hope was playing with her dolls, dark curls bouncing, Noah's eyes and Ali's determination written in every gesture. "Mama." Hope looked up. "Where did you and Daddy meet?" Ali smiled. "That's a long story, baby." "I like stories." So Ali told her. She told her about being lost and alone. About a kind man who stopped when everyone else walked by. About choosing to heal together. She didn't tell her all of it. Hope was too young for the pain of it, the cruelty. But she told her the important parts. Sometimes, Ali said, the worst moments of our lives lead us to the best ones. And sometimes the people who throw us away make room for the people who will cherish us. Did Daddy cherish you? Every single day. And you cherished him. Every single day. Hope considered this seriously. Then, "I'm glad he found you in the rain." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." Noah came out then, carrying lemonade and cookies, and Hope ran to him, leaping into his arms. "Daddy, Mama told me about when you met." "Did she?" He looked at Ali over their daughter's head, love and understanding in his eyes. "You saved her." "No," Noah said, kissing Hope's forehead. "We saved each other." And watching them, her husband and her daughter, her family, her life, Ali knew it was true. She'd been thrown away as nothing, but she'd landed in the arms of someone who saw everything. And together, they'd built a life worth saving. The end. Thank you for watching this journey with me. If this story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment telling me what moment hit you hardest. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their worst moment might be leading them to their best one. And remember, you are never nothing. Even when the world tells you otherwise, you are everything to someone. Maybe you just haven't met them yet. Until next time, take care of your heart. It's the only one you've got.